Unusual Findings is probably the best point-and-click adventure game I've played in about 6 weeks. But honestly, Unusual Findings is probably right up there with the best adventure games of the last 20 years. It is that good. Unusual Findings is a point-and-click adventure game which is loosely based on a really popular TV series. No, not that one. Stranger Things, which I've never personally watched. This game is a love letter to the 80s, or more specifically, a love letter to simpler times. A time when, if you encountered an alien robot, as we often did, you would be able to repair it with a 1451 disk drive for a Commodore 64.
That was easy to install. Now we can use floppy disks in the computer.
I'm a computer. Stop all the downloading.
Everything's here, from vintage PCs to the music to old video games, references to classic movies. I mean every 80s movie poster you could imagine is in this game, albeit with slightly different names, probably for copyright reasons. But if it just relied on pop culture references, I think that's where the game would have its flaws. But it doesn't do that. What it relies upon is that feeling of being back with your buddies, with your friends, going on adventures, going through scrapes together. And Vinny, Tony and Nick, the three characters in Unusual Findings, are three excellent protagonists. That's right, it's 3 for the price of 1 on characters. This is the game's biggest unique selling point, because I can't think of many other point-and-click adventure games where you get 3 characters who stay together for the entire game. There isn't one point where they do the Scooby-Doo thing and all split up and get murdered. They stay together the entire time. The distinct voices add to the flavour of the game. When you look at an object, you get 3 different viewpoints.
We should tell the police.
We could try, but I don't think they'll believe us.
The graphics themselves evoke nostalgia. It's pixel art style, but with a little bit of added modern flair. You've got the fog and certain different effects and the lighting, which are a little bit more modern and not all necessarily pixel art. And it's a nice balance between the two. If you play this game, you say, oh, it's an 80s style game. It's really not. It's got a lot of modern trappings to it, but it's got that lovely pixel art style. And they've gone for a very stop motion sort of animations rather than nice fluid animations, which adds to the effect of it being a nostalgic game. Puzzles are really interesting because there's apparently loads of optional puzzles which I personally didn't find, and there are alternative solutions to puzzles. And again, I didn't think when I was playing the game that there must be another way of doing this. I found the solution that worked for me, and it got me through the game. I never really felt like I was missing out on trying it a different way. It's only having finished the game and looked at other walkthroughs that I've seen that there's certain objects and inventory items that I didn't even pick up. So, in a sense, it's got lots of replayability, so you can go back and find those optional puzzles, and you can go back and try different solutions to them. Most of the puzzles are relatively straightforward. There's a little bit of a reliance on inventory puzzles as opposed to anything else, like dialogue-based puzzles. A couple of items like the spanner you seem to use over and over and over again. There are some brilliantly fitting puzzles which add to the nostalgia. I'll give one now, which is a bit of a spoiler here, but you have to blow on a video game cartridge to get it to work.
Hey, now it worked!
Which, if you're a child from the 80s and 90s, makes so much sense. I can't imagine someone playing this now who's never used a game cartridge ever figuring that out. But it's a nice little touch, and there's loads of little touches like that which add to the nostalgic 80s vibe. Unfortunately, there are a couple of puzzles which are a little bit tedious. There's one where you have to beat a fighting game, and the only way to do it is figure out which character beats the other characters. And by doing that, it's real trial and error, and it isn't particularly fun. There's another puzzle which does the absolute cardinal sin of throwing one timing puzzle into the game out of nowhere. This channel's called Lockmarn Goat for a reason, because it's that one puzzle in Broken Sword that requires you to not use any inventory items, not use the dialogue system, but to do things at a certain time. And because you're not training the player that that's part of the gameplay, it can completely throw you. So that's the one puzzle where I thought, you know what, what's all that about? But I'd say 80 to 90% of the puzzles can be solved without walkthrough, and even if you did look at a walkthrough, most of the time you'd think, oh, why didn't I try that? Which is a sign of good puzzle design in my view. The interface of the game is relatively clean and precise. You've got a small bag which you can open up and use inventory items, and you can flick through inventory items and your cursor using the shoulder buttons on the Switch, which is a really nice feature, and it speeds things up quite a bit. Having played Return to the Monkey Island, we've been a bit spoilt with the new features in there, such as the hint system and the to-do list. This game doesn't have those kind of things, but it does have very balanced puzzles, which is great. Usual Findings could have gone fully nostalgic, and it could have gone for a 9-verb interface and been like the very early LucasArts adventure games. It could have done that, but it didn't. It's gone for a verb coin. So there's interact, there's look, and there's talk to. In certain circumstances, talk to becomes taste, and in certain circumstances, interact becomes punch, for example, and look becomes look. What this does mean is that you can get Vinny to try and talk to every object in the game, and most of the time there's some sort of response. By using a verb coin, they've gone for what I think is the most elegant solution for a point-and-click adventure game these days. I think if they'd gone further than that, it wouldn't have been so much nostalgic as more arcane, and they've made the right choice, basically. The story, without revealing too much, is a quest for these guys to get some free adult movies on their TV, which in turn means that they actually intercept an alien signal. Before long, an alien invasion is unveiled within the game slowly as you solve puzzles and progress. The game is well paced, it's driven along by its characters and by the protagonists, and the NPCs in the game are absolutely outstanding. You've got punk gangs, you've got peeping Tom teachers, you've got different characters, and you've got the lemon cola girls and different homeless people who call you goblins. It's one after the other, and every character you interact with has something interesting to say. There's even an 80s action hero who sits around playing video games all day, and he becomes sort of like the main NPC of the game, other than the alien itself.
The ball!
Kids!
The locations are relatively interesting, but they are a little samey in terms of the fact that you go from one small town to another small town, and you go from one lab to another lab. So within that, there's little micro changes, like at one point you'll go to an arcade, or you'll go to a forest, but there's lots of different variations on a theme. It can get a little bit samey. A lot of adventure games do the whole globe-trotting thing where you can travel from place to place. Unusual Findings is very much based in this one small town, which is great, but it does limit itself a little bit there. So, overall, I really enjoyed Unusual Findings. I'd highly recommend trying it out. It's a brilliant adventure game, and it's a brilliant game in general. If you're an 80s kid or even a 90s kid and you want that little bit of nostalgia, it's perfect for you. If you want a game with some good puzzles, it's also perfect for you. It's just a great adventure game. Thanks for watching.